I'm sorry, the Secretary of Transportation being like, don't wear your pajamas. Fuck you. When you become a fashion stylist, you let me know. Stick with transportation. Why don't you worry about flights instead of worrying about what people are wearing on them?
Welcome back to America Who Hurt You, the pod where we tap into our highest selves even as America is at some of its lowest lows. I'm your host, Sarah Jones, and you may know me from the characters I play on stage, but today you'll just hear my voice on this mic with my very special guest, the brilliant Stacy London. As you probably know, Stacy is the style maven from TLC's iconic series, What Not to Wear, which also inspired Wear Whatever the F You Want. And plus, she has a new podcast and digital series, Why'd They Wear That? She also designs the most gorgeous QVC line by Stacy London. But what you might not know is that outside of the fashion world, Stacy is a true humanitarian who constantly lifts up women's rights, both IRL and on her podcast, which focuses on one key women's issue. I'll let you guess which one. The pod is called Hello Menopause. Today, Stacy and I get into the ways style can be used as resistance, why the fashion industry is falling prey to regressive thinking, and how the left can sew up its ranks against the rising tide of fascism. You like that? But before we get into all of it, whether you're listening to this on your phone or watching us on YouTube, which I highly recommend, and definitely subscribe. If you like this episode, make sure you share it with a friend, follow us on all the socials at America Who Hurt You, and you can subscribe to our Substack. Yes, I am Sarah Jones. All of that really supports the work we're doing here, and it'll help us keep going in the future. For now, it is such a pleasure to welcome my dear friend, Stacy London. My friend is here.
And you just wander in looking fabulous.
But that's on purpose because it's you. But here's the thing. Okay, so first of all, for people who can't see us, if you're just listening, Stacy London, you already know she's going to bring the gorgeousness, and she's giving gorgeous silver streaks, her customary gorgeous silver streaks. She's giving like a pattern that's, oh yes, the hair is luxurious.
A pattern cashmere sweater that I had to buy because I just moved, and I still, everything is in boxes.
I got dressed up thinking about this interview with you. So for those of you who can't see me, I'm sorry, honey, but I brought my Stacy London worthy A game. Low key, this was a sale. I didn't do Black Friday because we ain't buying it, but this was a sale purchase last year. Awesome. And I am so into this. Like, who are you wearing? I'm wearing whoever the fuck I want.
Amen.
And like, as your show, it was so dope to me that you brought back Wear Whatever the F You Want.
It was like, great, right? I mean, we had so much fun doing it.
It's so fun. People have to watch it because it just gives you that sense of like, oh, this is about power. This is some of the power that we can take back. What I feel is so relevant about that now, besides the fact that for anybody who's watching, you can see I'm wearing a necklace that I bought thrifting with Stacy like 10 years ago that has become my signature necklace. It's a big birdie that sits. I love it so much. I remember you were like, get that, get this. And it was so, I want to bring it back around to this moment that we're in now, all these years later, because so much of your life, your work speaks to this moment where we have to hold both. We have to hold the moment that we're in as Americans, where it really does feel like daily survival for some of us, depending on our identity. As women, it's not a fun hang right now.
Nope.
And the joy. I remember learning how to like have fun and express myself, you know, when all else fails and it's literally dark outside in multiple ways. Take something from your closet that reminds you who you are and how beautiful you are inside. Project that outwardly. Anyway, these are the thoughts that came to me when I thought about getting to talk to you. Yeah. And so thank you for being part of my survival posse.
Of course. First of all, I would never not be a part of your survival posse. But I'm thrilled that you're doing this podcast because I actually think that we are holding more than, one truth right now at the same time. And even I struggle with this. Not to name drop, but I met Julianne Moore last night.
As you do. How's she doing?
And she was so delightful and so generous with her time. But she recognized me from the show. And she was saying to me, I love fashion so much. And I said, we started talking about the fact that it's kind of hard to admit that that's something that you love, or to be kind of materialistic in any way, because we associate that with somehow being, it's like a folly, like we're somehow being superficial, instead of the true bliss, the true joy of self-expression on your own terms. It does not mean you have to go buy new things. It means you can shop in your closet. You do not have to buy new. You can always buy vintage. But this idea that we're almost not allowed to revel in the joy of our own self-discovery because we are battling, literal fascists, and it feels like the world is coming to an end, and it's not the friendly place for anybody in any group that we would consider marginalized outside of, white, cis, hetero males. And I do think it's hard. I do think it's very hard to remember that this is like self-care. And a lot of people use that word, and I'm like, I'm like, self-care is like also going for a DEXA scan and making sure you have strong bones, and it's, doing your exercises or whatever.
Yes.
But there is something so important about style, not about the kind of materialism of having a lot of things, that still holds true for me to be one of the easiest ways to self-soothe.
Yes. Yes, we need to be digging deeper than ever to hold on to our self-worth and our, like you said, I want to self-soothe with all the things that give me joy. That's, like getting dressed up and putting on my favorite necklace. That is also like remembering that style is a part of revolution all the time. Like I was looking back at like South Africa, during the apartheid, people had their hats cocked to the side. You know what I mean? It just gives you that sense of like, oh, this is about power. This is some of the power that we can take back.
So one of the things that I struggle with is that a lot of people who used to love style have decreased its importance to them, and rightly so in a lot of ways. But I always think it is the first thing that drops off, right? We have been so mentally exhausted that the idea of having to make decisions or put outfits together feels kind of overwhelming when you're just like, I'd rather stay home anyway than sit in traffic for an hour to go to Margie's house to like have a cocktail and then have to leave to get home to put the kids to bed, right? Whatever.
Not Margie. Margie's catching strays. Why are we attacking Margie? Okay.
Listen, I'm like, I made up a name as I go. But one thing that I think has also happened due to being inside more and doing things always on a computer, always on a phone, and always having access to social media, is that now our standards and our comparisons are very different from what we used to know in our own lives. So now you see rich people doing very rich things that you will never be as rich as Jeff Bezos, but you can watch him, do all of these things. You can watch all of, that circle, whether it's the glitterati, whether it's Hollywood, you can see the kind of amazingness, right, of their lives. We don't get to see the hard stuff. We get to see what we don't have. And I think that really has encouraged people in a lot of ways to kind of give up, because they're like, we don't need trillionaires in the world. We need free healthcare, and we need universal childcare. And it's very hard to separate the idea of style from that. And I really encourage people to find it for themselves, instead of saying things like, so-and-so said this is a big trend, or I need to buy this designer. We're really at a stage now where, anything goes.
Yes.
Your style should reflect not just how you're feeling, but your personality, and also what you want to say about yourself. And you were mentioning before that fashion really does reflect the times, right?
Yes.
And there are instances. There is a great woman that I follow on social media called like Biggest Loser in Brooklyn, or Loser in Brooklyn, Oldest Loser in Brooklyn, something like that. But she's wonderful. Yeah. And she was talking about the fact that, Prada showed aprons this season for spring. Wow. I mean, if that was not for trad wives, I don't know who it was for, because I am not going to wear an apron. Like, that's just never going to happen. Wow. And that some of the prices of these clothes are almost, for women, I say, misogynistic. Yep. We only have 2 women who are designing for major houses, and Louise Trotter's Bottega collection was amazing. But most of these designers, they look like they can't stand women. I mean, these mouth guards that were at Margiela. I mean, some of this stuff, you're like, what is happening? This is not art. This is not fashion. Nobody can wear it. What is the point. And it does make a mockery of all the things that we talk about in terms of personal style. So I don't recommend, looking for the most expensive thing that you can find or just buying designer because one, I think the prices are misogynistic.
Yes.
And I think the clothing is not female friendly.
Yes. And by the way, I mean, this is not an ad, but your stuff is gorgeous and
Oh,
it's
you're so kind.
practical and it's thinking about women's bodies in a different way.
Yes.
And I just, again, what does it mean to be an American woman today in a time when there are literal predators running the country, right? And so even connecting that back up with like, it does have to do with our self-worth, our self-esteem.
And also because that idea of predators running the country makes you feel so much more vulnerable. And therefore, all of the ways that we want to dress, whether that's in a provocative way, in a body conscious way, all of a sudden has a very different meaning. And it doesn't feel like it's one of freedom. Right now, all of a sudden, I feel that more people are afraid. More people are concerned about the way their looks are going to be interpreted. Even more so than in the early 2000s when we started What Not to Wear. And we can get away with a lot more in terms of being sloppy. The pajamification of America has been happening for 20 years. That would be okay if everybody was walking around feeling great.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, the director, the Secretary of Transportation being like, don't wear your pajamas. Fuck you. When you become a fashion stylist, you let me know. Stick with transportation.
Thank you. Maybe get us some transportation and
like about the flights instead of worrying about what people are wearing on them.
So we were just talking about like, as you and we got to, kind of reconnect at TED where you gave this beautiful talk/conversation. And this brings me back to something. As a kid, I remember the body image stuff already creeping in by the time I was like 9, 10. It was like, oh, I'm not curvy enough. You're 9. You're not supposed to. But that judgment and that feeling of we live in a larger society that tells you who you have to be. And then our actual politics are driven in part by, like you said, people shrinking, people being afraid, people being, somebody who literally attacks women is now in charge. How are you going to stand up to your abusive partner? How are you going to not be afraid of cops when you see them able to do whatever they want to, people's bodies in the street?
As it pertains to women in particular, I really do struggle with this whole concept of not having bodily autonomy, that America denies women bodily autonomy. And that does not just mean abortion. That has just something to do with it, not everything to do with it. I would argue that we are not autonomous when it comes to our bodies because we don't have an education about them. This is the huge thing that I discovered when I started working in menopause is that women don't know what's happening to them. There is a reason, because we associate menopause with aging, which is like you're not allowed to do because the patriarchy doesn't want you to. Or if you're old, you better just be helpful and stay out of the way. You can't be a sexual person. You can't be a powerful person. That's not what the patriarchy wants for you. They want you to be a grandmother who stays at home and helps mom take care of the kids, right? Yep. And all of that is something that has been reinforced and reinforced and reinforced in a multitude of ways that have been before this political sort of turmoil.
And now we have the trad wife culture and like mainstream, outlets giving these people huge platforms to basically say you're not viable as a woman unless you are making babies, period.
And then you have people like Nick Fuentes who literally are telling, people to rape women and then saying, oh, but she'll probably like it. I cannot believe we live in a world where that is permissible. I can't believe that we live in a world where encouraging people not only to break the law, but to break a woman spiritually, emotionally, physically is something that we're allowed to say out loud.
It's right in lockstep with the highest office in the land. But let me ask you this. I know because I listen to you and there are other people I listen to and talk to, we are also more powerful than we've ever been. The game that has been run on us, we can see it. We can see that they are full of it, that this trad wife thing, that trying to get us to spend all our money on clothes that we don't need, right? That is
Exactly.
all, it's bullshit. And the
I'm
fact that our
nodding.
health,
I'm nodding. I'm like, yes,
you're
yes,
not,
exactly.
yes,
Yes.
yes. So I'm saying, I guess what I'm saying is we can know all of this and we can take our power back. Like, what do we
Of
do to take our
course.
power back?
Well, the first thing I want to say is I completely acknowledge. Hold on. You know what I'm going to do here? Maybe this will be easier because I'm about to break my knees to sit
Don't
here.
break your knees.
Do not break my knees. I need them
No.
to walk. What I want to say is that yes, what we're describing is the climate. It's not it's not how I am going to handle it. I can say that all of these things are happening and still believe that getting dressed every day and getting dressed every morning or screwing around in my closet, while I'm cleaning and trying on new things and trying on things different ways is still my form of rebellion. It is my form of joy. It is something for me to get excited about. And it's something that nobody else has any control over, right?
Yes.
Nobody's in this apartment. Nobody's here with me when I'm trying this stuff on. This is for me. And when I walk out of the house, whatever I'm wearing, if I'm if I'm wearing a shirt cut down to my belly button, I know what I'm doing. Like, I am here. I know what people will say. I know what this patriarchal lens is going to do. And I certainly know in this climate what I'm asking for. But I can also fight back. Who are you to make the rules, right? We made rules on what not to wear at a time that I really believe people just needed more fashion education. And when I think about that, I think about the fact that it was really about geometry, right? We
Yes.
were teaching you your body shape and we were teaching you the way clothes can work or not work for a particular shape, depending on what you're looking for.
Yep.
And now, I'm certainly a lot more open. Like, I'm not interested in telling you what to wear. I'm interested in getting you to the place where you feel free enough to wear and be who you want to be and allow your wardrobe to kind of supplement that feeling and kind of, help round out that vision of who you are. That's what I want for you. It's funny, Julianne said the same thing to me last night. She said the two things that have ever mattered to her are what she put in her body and what she wears on her body and how she just styles her home, like how,
Yes.
interior design. And it made me laugh because I have a quote from years ago where I said, you should feel the same thing from your clothing that you do from your home. Beautiful and safe.
Beautiful and safe. I had never thought of my clothes as a home, but since our larger home, aka this country, is such a mess, I kind of like the idea of having someplace literally cozy to turn to. So I'm going to go swaddle myself up while we take a quick break. We're back with Stacy London, who says that any outfit can be a suit of armor. Just make sure you don't become a supervillain in the process.
I feel like we should be using our clothing as armor. And
Oh my
whether
God.
or not that's sexy, powerful, capable, competent, whatever you want to say is what you should be able to evoke with your wardrobe. I just found this amazing Gloria Vanderbilt silk blouse from the 70s when I was in Pennsylvania that was $18. And
Hell,
I love it. I
my God.
love it. It brought me so much joy. And that's the thing. I'm not saying it has to cost a ton of money. I'm not saying, but anything that you can do, you could get a bunch of bandanas, wear some in your hair, wear some as a necktie. I don't care.
I just love that because that has been my experience, Stacy. I have, the depression that came over me when this administration first came in. It was so painful. And I remember thinking everything feels lost. They flood us with so much that's so unmanageable that you end up feeling almost curled up in a ball. And here's the miracle, I think, in all of this. We're not alone. We're talking about it more. The mutual aid of, like, there are people I wouldn't have called in the past, but this emergency level of where are we? Who are we? Are you okay? I think is bringing us, do you feel that way?
I absolutely do. I think, what you're talking about is the fact that, when you are empathic and when you can see the kind of cruelty that is happening in the world right now, it is very hard not to delve into community. And I mean that both like locally, I mean that in terms of, who are the women that you trust most? What does your circle look like? How are we taking care of each other? Can I watch your kids? Is this going to be financial, like kind of pooling our funds together? What does this look like if things get worse from here? And I think that it is going to be about these smaller communities that can actually be on the ground, human, not AI, right?
Woo!
Really like pulling together intentional communities to help like-minded people. And I'll tell you, I mean, I guess my existential crisis lately has been, I don't know if people are genetically born that they care about other people
Mm.
and other people don't. Because I know everybody should have the ability for empathy and compassion, but I simply don't see it in everybody. I see
Mhm.
people being selfish and narcissistic and concerned only with their own well being or building their own generational wealth. And on top of that, you have all these billionaires who, if they were just taxed 0.2% of their incomes,
Mm.
we could solve, world
Everything.
hunger.
We would solve everything.
Everything.
And then we would all get dressed any kind of way we want. Everything. Well, now, and let me say, Stacy, so as you're saying this, it's coming to me, our trauma, or you could call it our problems, because not everybody identifies with trauma, but our problems are like driving our politics, and then our politics drive our problems. They're like in this loop of, like, as you said, some of us are looking at the cruelty and going, is this genetic? Like, what is this?
How
I
is this
wonder,
possible?
how is this possible? And I wonder what you think about this kind of hurt people idea, right? That, like, if you're a billionaire who's really like in your villain era, what happened in your childhood, bruh? Or like, who
Yeah.
were you?
I mean, I look at look at Trump's mother, right? I mean, and we've heard the nightmare stories about the dad, but I think that that is true. I mean, I that really resonates with me because it took me a long time to be who I am. And I was bullied as a kid and I turned into a bully. Like it is very hard. It was great for what not to wear, right? It made me very good at being critical, but it wasn't great for life or love or friendship or kindness or compassion or caring.
Can
And
I,
at a
I,
certain point,
this is, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it is such a powerful place to be able to say, I was bullied as a kid and it turned me into a bully and now I'm on the other side. And I
it
really
takes a lot of
identify
work.
with that. Yeah. Will you say more about that?
I've talked about it before. I was not entirely conscious of how my behavior was affecting other people because I was so caught up in my own problems, right?
Mm.
You tend to, when you're looking inward, and certainly for me, this was about fear and depression and all sorts of worrying about what other people thought of me, all of this stuff, right, that went on constantly in my head on this kind of loop.
Mm.
I wasn't realizing that I was like rude to people, like not just mean, rude, like really just not thinking that I had any effect on them because I was like, I can't figure out my own life. It's like nobody can really see me.
Mm.
And you come to realize that A, that is not true. And B, the more love you give, the more love you get. It's
Mm.
just, it's like giving somebody sugar instead of vinegar. They are going to be nicer if you are kinder. There is a real, even if you are like a completely, selfish, narcissistic person, you still win by being nicer because people will be nicer to you. So forget about who you are, at your base core character. It's just a better way to live. But
Mm.
when I see millions of people suffering in all sorts of different ways, and also just to go back to what you said, Sarah, which I think is really important to talk about, is just this idea of, you have a home, I have a home. We're very lucky that we can't be pulled out on the streets. But everybody at every economic level, at all over the country, the one thing that we do have in common is that we are being like tortured, harassed by this political administration. And we all have to be able to agree on that, even with our own, different levels of care or different levels of means, because that's not the issue. Everybody can have problems, whether you're rich or you're not rich. Everybody can have problems. It's how we help those who are the most marginalized and the less fortunate that is going to make everybody better, right? I always say if you start with the most marginalized person, then if you are setting up a tactic for how they move through the world, how they get the most out of the world, then everybody else benefits.
It's true. It's true. And that helps me remember also in how we're looking at this current moment that we're in, right? regardless of who is, at the top, so-called top, because to me, the person and the administration are in a bottom. As far as humanity goes, this is a bottom, right? Authoritarianism, violence, like state-sponsored violence, taking away the basic safety net that, by the way, we, the taxpayers and the workers, pay for. They ain't paying no taxes, and yet they running off with the bag. Explain that to me. But in a moment like this, the idea that, and this is my ancestry, that I have my Black relatives, I have my white relatives, some of whom are Jews. We can look at historic examples of persecution and people having to flee real danger and see how people survived. I don't mean to say that we're, quite there, but for some people, we are. There are families who have lost their kids and can't find them, right? Like, we're right there. And so I guess what I'm asking you is, in your moving through the world, both as an individual and as someone people look to, what do we say to people who truly they are afraid?
Yeah, I mean, one, I think you first have to recognize that your fear is justified. You're not crazy for being frightened, right? And a lot of times when we feel something very strongly, my opinion is that we react to that feeling. So instead of just being sad, you get mad at yourself for being sad. Instead of just being afraid, you're like, buck up, don't be afraid. You have every right to be afraid. And I think that I have been studying dialectical behavioral therapy. It's more of a study than it is just, it's not talk therapy, right? You learn these different techniques, and they're both physical and mental, and the way that we practice mindfulness and all of these things are ways in which to stay in the moment and to kind of gather your strength for what we call using your wise mind and using kind of realistic acceptance, not even radical acceptance, because that sometimes is almost too hard to do. And I think in this situation, that's where we are. But it is middle of the road thinking. I'm afraid, but I'm going to stay in this moment. I'm going to stay with what I'm doing or what I'm trying to do. I'm going to stay in this moment. I'm not going to predict what's going to happen a week from now. I'm not going to predict what's happening a year from now. I'm going to stay here, and I'm going to do my best to be my best. And whatever that looks like. Whatever that looks like for you. And I do think this idea of kind of a higher self and a lower self, they talk about that in astrology, which I always used to be like, I've had some higher Gemini qualities and definitely some lower ones. But that idea of appealing to your higher self is where moderation is even important in terms of moderating your own feelings. That you are justified in having them, but that you can control them, that they are yours to have, and that you can put them down. You can say, I'm afraid, and I'm still going to do this. I'm afraid, that's what courage is, right? It doesn't mean you're not afraid. There's a lot to do, and it really does change, I think, the way that you're thinking, and it does not allow fear to overcome you. It does not allow for you to get sort of paralytically fearful, because you have tools in which to stop what you're doing and reevaluate. What can I do to stop myself before I'm so terrified I can't leave the house? What can I do? What are the little baby steps I can do? I'm going to, I'm going to take a run around the block, or I'm going to go grocery shopping, or whatever it is. You don't have to suddenly, start traveling the world. That you take little baby steps, no matter what your fear is. I wouldn't say exposure therapy is right for everybody, but to the extent that you can do that sliver of it or something that reminds you of it, I think it's important to do. And also to remind yourself that, yes, we are filled with resilience. That's what humans are. And you talk about historically, there have been so many persecutions. That's what I think we need to start thinking about. We need to start thinking about, well, look, lots of times the good guys lost.
Right.
Lots of times the good guys lost. That doesn't mean that, we're losing everything. But it also means I have a very good friend who's an energy worker. Her name is Ray Chu. And I highly recommend looking her up. But she said to me, what is happening in the world in terms of climate, in terms of politics, she said, something is breaking for something new to emerge. And you have to remember, no matter where we are in that cycle, that we're going to look back at history and realize this was the moment.
We are in it, y'all. But this idea that we might be able to look back from the other side at all of this, that's what's getting me through. And I hope you'll hold on to some of that same energy as well during this break. We're back, and while Stacy is usually telling people what to wear, now she's telling us how to wear down authoritarianism.
We are starting to see, where the cracks are, where the changes are going to come from, and what it means to stand up to a bunch of fascists. And I am really given so much hope every day when I get to talk to women like you, when I get to meet Julianne Moore, when I get to talk to people who I know really care about other people and are looking for the most common good for the greatest amount of people. I believe that we're here, and I believe that we are starting to think differently. Jen Welch from the I've Had It podcast, I think she is brilliant. She is a viper. She goes after people and really doesn't let anybody off the hook. You're taking AIPAC money, you gotta admit to it, right? I don't care whether you're Cory Booker or a Republican. Like, she is like, let's be truthful here about what is going on in our political system and what really needs to change. And we just saw the mayor of Miami win that election. We saw Mamdani win. And these are small but significant changes. And I don't even think you can be a Republican. I don't know how, but you can. That's like, you still have the right to do that. Nobody's forcing you at gunpoint. But if you do that, then I want you to bring to light the things that are too far left for us to manage as a country, right? There are some things that no matter what we say we want, they're so far left and the kind of utopian socialist environment that we're never going to be able to get to while we're practicing capitalism, right? And we may not be practicing democracy right now, but we are definitely practicing capitalism. So I think it's also about being realistic. What are the things that we can accomplish? And what are the things that, hell is going to have to freeze over before we can accomplish?
So I want to ask you about, and my favorite new thing is, I'm calling it capitalism. This is where we are. We are definitely in late stage capitalism. But as you said, we still have to, we're in the muck. What else can we do?
If you have means, you donate where you can, right? To me, it's very important that that we are really looking after our own. And I say that when I say our own, I mean, for me in particular, women who are less fortunate and struggling. I feel very strongly about the Black Girl's Guide to Surviving Menopause and the platform that has become, and divesting from sort of the Caucasian conversation about women's health and really looking to the most marginalized, incarcerated women, people who are post-incarceration and are still looking to make their lives better. These are the people that I'm worrying about right now, like how these things affect them, especially in the South. And, that's one way. The other way is marching. The other way is calling your senators nonstop. Like, all of this stuff matters. But at the end of the day, that has to be balanced with, I'm not getting out of bed today. I'm going to wear pajamas all day. I'm going to make myself an iced coffee. I'm going to watch TV. I'm going to watch mindless stuff like Love is Blind or whatever the hell people watch now. And I am going to give myself this break. It is a respite from what is going on in the world. And I don't believe that we can fight without rest. It is definitely apparent to me because I've burned out so many times fighting or working so hard and not giving myself, because I think that giving myself a rest is doing nothing. And it's not doing nothing. You are recharging. You need a battery charge just like any, computer. And I think that we tend to forget that, and we tend to make that the first thing that we can give up because, it's sort of like going to the gym or your favorite dance class, things that bring you joy or things that make you feel good about yourself and capable and competent. We cut them out because we think that's what we don't have time for. But you know what? You can't do an hour-long meeting. You can do a half an hour meeting because you're going to take that other half hour and go take a disco nap. Or you won't take phone calls before 10 because you're going to go to the gym first. Or you're going to take your kids to school. Or whatever that looks like for you, built into your life has to be life, not just work.
Oh my God. Built into your life has to be life is a whole seminar. And it is. And I have to say, it's so important for anyone listening. Like, we get to have both. And you, as a woman who know how to get educated so that you acknowledge your own privilege, right? And then
course.
and then like do something with it, right? This is not for anybody, whatever your background, to be like, oh, I have too much, I feel guilty. But no, we don't have time for any of that.
No,
And I
right.
love
I'm
that
a little
it's
tired of the white woman's lament. If I can say that here, just because we've been through cancel culture. Anybody who didn't understand what was happening before certainly understands now. And the idea that we aren't banding together to help each other is just nonsensical to me. So that's the other thing that I don't really understand, right? Anybody who would deny help to somebody that they can give it to, I don't get why they wouldn't. And so whatever that looks like as women, and this is, again, my problem with the Democratic Party, aside from the fact that we should have been looking for our new politicians the minute Biden took office. I mean, he was supposed to be a one-term president. Am I crazy? Does nobody remember that? So we should have been looking, we should have had a bench. We should have had 12 players. You know what I mean?
Deep bench.
We were so lazy. We're lazy, and we fight amongst ourselves in a way that does not allow us to win.
Yeah.
So, I want white women to just put down the poor is me, I can't believe I'm being attacked, and recognize your privilege and then do something with it, right? That is all anybody's asking of you, is that from where you sit, you have a lot of leverage. Use it. That's what that means. Don't sit around and tell yourself, oh my God, I'm a horrible person. That's like, we don't have time for that. We don't have time for you to sit in a pool of guilt and do nothing. That's not helpful. And to those people who you love and trust, ask them how you can do more. Ask them where your blind spot is. Ask them for constructive criticism, right? Not the kind that's going to rip you to shreds, the kind that is kind, that is helpful. And I really believe that if we could put aside those differences, whether it's about race, gender, sexuality, how far left you are, if we could just as a party stick together, like the Republicans do to stay in power, then we would win.
Every time. And it's why they've had to deploy this crazy playbook that they've been working on for decades, right? Is because the reality is, kind of like you said, and this is my personal opinion, but we're wired for love. We're wired as babies to be these like love sponges that give love back. And it's not until you get a barrage of, this is the American way, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you're a piece of shit unless you're, a straight white man.
Unless you're rich.
Unless you're a rich straight white man. And even then, if you're Donald Trump and God forbid, whatever, I'm fascinated by how much these titans of power, when you look back, they're not happy people. And the money they're earning isn't making them any happier. They're richer.
They may feel more powerful, but I think that's because they don't know how to experience joy. I think that, you're absolutely right when it comes to, one, I think that there are a lot of spineless people in office right now. And so whether or not they were bullied, I really do believe Trump is just a sociopath, right? But the lackeys and the loyalists he has around them, I don't know that they've all been, through trauma or didn't have happy childhoods. I don't even care. It's the fact that we do know what's right and wrong. This idea that there is no objective sense of right and wrong, I really struggle with. We understand the difference between kindness and cruelty. And that's when I see idiots like Pete Hegseth, I'm like, how can you possibly make the world a better place? How can you do it?
Special place in hell, especially because if you look, he was saying the opposite of all the things he's saying now 10 years ago. So we know they know better.
And I mean, look at Marjorie Taylor Greene now. Look at this wonderful transformation of hers. Who does she think she's kidding?
Oh my God.
So, the other thing is we are losing our way because we are not speaking truth to power, in the sense that we are not calling out what we say things are illegal, but they're also immoral or amoral. And I really, this idea that white evangelicals are somehow the standard of Christianity, that's not what Christianity is. And great Christians, so many people I know who are actually quite religious, cannot understand the cruelty of this government. This has nothing to do with religion. Trump is not the second coming. He was not chosen by Christ. He had a lot of money and he had a really mean dad. And look what happens. Look what happens.
Oh, God. So here's the best part about this for me. We may not live to see.
No, we may not.
Right? Like we're in the 250th anniversary of this experiment. And I do try to look back and remember like Mother Jones or, whoever these historical figures are who fought for morality, like you're talking about. They knew what was right and wrong and where they were trying to excuse, terrible, inhumane behavior because it made slave owners rich or whatever. Like you know what I mean? We've been here before as a country and we've never been the supposed perfect union. Yes, this feels like a slide back, but I think it's important that we don't know how this will play out. We may not live to see it, but we get to fight like hell for whoever is coming behind us. And I think there's joy in that. I think we get to put on a gorgeous outfit underneath our protest t-shirt and go protest and, like mutual aid the hell out of each other.
And I really do think in some cases, it's just going to come down to that. You may not be able to march. You may not be able to donate funds. But, you can bake cookies for your friend next door who's really struggling with getting a visa or a permanent residency or is afraid. You can sit with them. We can't solve everything individually, but we can do every little thing we can to make the world feel like a better place, even while we're going through such hardships. And as I said before, my friend Ray, she's an energy worker, but I feel like she is like sent from the universe, because she really has a much bigger idea of what's happening here. Something falling apart for something better to emerge is how I keep looking at this. We are sort of at the, we keep saying it's late stage capitalism, as you like to say, but whatever late stage it is, something is breaking. And I really do believe that's in our best interest because we have been working with an imperfect system this whole time. Maybe we need some changes. Maybe we need to participate in our own government. Maybe we need to think about why doesn't the Constitution say that women should vote? Why isn't that updated in the Constitution? Why isn't it updated that, you can't own other people? Like all of the things that we need to be able to logically and rationally say. And I don't believe that it's going to turn out that the way that this is breaking is that we're going to slide back. We're not. It makes me think what you said about dressing up and, taking pictures and having joy in this life that will remind somebody to have joy in theirs when they come around. But it also reminds me of Hamilton and George Washington and that idea of planting a tree that you'll never sit under. You gotta plant. You gotta keep planting, right? Because that's the only way we grow.